Hello and welcome to my studio journal. Now back in 2022, I started to redesign my home studio, shifting from software to hardware for the first time. What began as a few videos for some curious students soon became an ongoing unfiltered record. This is going to be the piano wall. Now the piano wall has the only other electrical outlet that's in the room. The other one is located on the other wall opposite. So everything in the studio, once again, has to be run from these two outlets. So we want to be able to get to it and plug things in and that sort of thing. So that has to be taken into account. Plus, we also have a modem over here that is put in, and that networks everything together, including part of the studio. But I don't want it just sitting on top of the piano because that doesn't look that attractive. So I'm going to try and hide it somehow. And how we go about doing that, we'll find out in a second. Other than that, let's get to it. Okay, this wall is perhaps the easiest wall to set up in my studio because all this is two cabinets with a piano roll between. Okay, now I did make some changes. One is I bought this mount right here that was on Amazon. It was like for $50, $60. This thing is for to hold a strobe light or a flash for a photography studio. Instead, I have the webcam on it, so it just has an overview of the piano that I can switch from the main desk at any time. Okay, let's talk USB. Now the thing is, neat mount that's up there, works great, overview of the piano, wonderful. It doesn't do any good if I can't plug it in. Now the problem is that the extension cord only goes down to about this height right here, so that doesn't do me much good getting to the computer, so I need to use a USB extension. If you get an active extension, sometimes they plug in, which means that you have to plug them into an electrical outlet, which means use another power outlet that you might need for something else. It certainly comes into play when you start plugging lots into your office or your studio. The other thing is knowing that USB 1, 2, and 3 all have different links that they're designed to transmit data. Anything beyond that, you're kind of risking it. Doesn't mean it won't work, but it's not designed to do that. So having an extension certainly helps that because these extensions are designed to basically boost that signal as they go along. You can either get a passive extension or an active extension. So in any case, this extension allows me then to hook this camera up to the computer that's on my main desk. I'll have to be quiet. I don't interrupt my modem in its natural habitat. Okay, so here's what I did. I had this pesky modem that was lying around. I didn't want it sitting on the edge of the piano anymore because it didn't look nice. Okay, so I wanted to hide it somewhere, but I still wanted to be able to get access to it. So what I did is used the handy dandy hole saw like we talked about yesterday when I was talking about putting together the main desk, how we used a hole saw to put holes in the back of the desk to run the audio monitor stands through. Well, all that a hole saw is a drill bit that has the edge of a saw on it. And so what happens is this will put a hole through anything that I aim it at. So almost, not steel, but anyhow, the thing is I wanted to hide some of this anyhow. So what I did is I put a hole in the back of this cupboard, ran all the wires through, but now this hides the modem that's back there, which means that it's easy to access. If I want to get to it, I just take out the AKG mic case and there we have it. The next thing we should talk about maybe in your studio is mics. Yes, there's a bunch of different types of mics. There's dynamics, there's condenser mics, there's ribbon mics, there's all these different types of mics, and people get really deep into what mic sounds best for their voice or their instrument. And I'm not going to get into all that because that's way too deep of a subject and something I don't know that terribly much about. But what I can tell you is that this mic right here, if you look at the end here, this uses an XLR cable to hook up. So in other words, I can't go directly from this into my computer. If I'm using this type of mic, I actually have to use an audio interface as well. And one that supports 48 volt phantom power. That's the thing. So if you're going to choose a mic like this that uses an XLR, make sure you have an audio interface. The other thing you can do is use a mic that is like this. This is another type of condenser mic. This is the one that I use the most. This is a Rode condenser mic. It's the NT-USB mic. Now this one just has a USB jack. This plugs straight into your computer. So the thing is, this in itself is really the audio interface. This is what converts your audio to digital. What's interesting about this is that there's actually two knobs on the side that you can see here. Now I use just a little headset like this when teaching in that, so students don't hear the feedback in the speakers and that. But so you plug in your headphones there, and you have your volume adjustment at the bottom, and at the top you have your USB mic and USB mix. So what happens is if I'm using Pro Tools, if I'm using Logic or Ableton, any of those things, what ends up happening is I'm able to mix the volume between what the computer is putting out and what the mic is hearing. So it's I can actually hear what the computer is doing as well. So that's kind of handy with the mic like this. Now that comes also into studio space. Like what sort of space do you have? Now with a lot of these mics, you have stands that you can put them on. The Rode one that I have, it comes with a clamp. This clamps onto the shelf, which I'm going to do here in a bit. And I also have a handy mic arm. So this thing simply is what the mic goes onto or hooks onto, and so it can sit there on the desk and I don't have to worry about things being in the way. One last thing, which I should have mentioned first, is the idea of plosive filters or pop filters. This is the one for the Rode that I use. Now the idea is that it goes in front of the mic so that when you speak into the mic that it actually makes the sound less harsh. When you're singing or speaking and you have, P's and B's and the air pressure towards the mic gets a little bit loud, so what ends up happening is you have these pops and things like this, undesirable sounds. This helps get rid of that. One last thing, there's always a last thing, is that I'm going to have to get the information from the piano to the computer. Now I can do that two different ways. I can do that either with a 5-pin MIDI connection, okay, or I can use USB, because most instruments are USB. The MIDI cord runs further than the USB, so I'm going to use that. I can't plug the MIDI cord straight into the computer, because once again, computers don't work that way. So for that, I need to have a little gadget like this. This is a MIDI Man by M Audio. It's a 2-in, 2-out MIDI interface. So in other words, what happens is I can plug the 5-pin MIDI cable into this box. This box uses the USB to plug into the computer, and then it understands all the MIDI messages coming through it. So that's how I'm going to hook up this particular piano on this wall, and we'll kind of see what happens there. Now on my main desk, I had some lights installed. I also have a light in each one of these cabinets, but I also wanted to put a light that comes down straight onto the piano from this arm. So the question is how to go about doing that. Okay, so here was my solution to that. Now this right here happens to be a leg from a desk riser. You know those risers that you put your monitor on to keep them off the surface of the desk. Well, I no longer needed it, nor did I have the other parts available for it, because it was one of those things that I got better stuff as I went. And I used this plastic bit to actually put the light, mount the light on. It happens to be wide, so it has a little bit of weight to it. And then I'm going to use Velcro ties to attach this to the actual mount. So once again, this is using something that's just lying around the house that has no other purpose right now to do something that you want in your studio. All right, so now we can see what that light looks like while it's mounted onto the arm. Okay, so now we have the MIDI interface on the main desk, ready to be hooked up. We have the Rode mic now on its stand, ready to be hooked up. And we have basically the piano all put together. Those chords are barely even noticeable. Obviously those chords are going to be really noticeable, so therefore sometimes maybe you can even use pictures like what I did to cover up any sort of chords and that sort of stuff that are forced to be on the wall that you might not want there. So now I can have my spotlights and have everything all covered up as well. If you'd like to follow the full journey, check out my online studio journal linked in the description. Until next time, I'm just a music teacher having fun. Catch you on the next one.